Yes.
I'd like to piggyback on that question regarding the resources, specifically pointing at banks. It appears that in a lot of instances, money was actually given to banks, but the banks aren't lending it to small businesses. And it seems like in that particular industry, clearly there's a lot of uncertainty, but one of the few people who are actually doing well stepped down earlier this year, the head of the FDIC, Mrs. Barrett, which concerned me a great deal. Where is the banking industry headed in regards to this particular crisis?
Yeah, so the question about the banking industry on this crisis, boy, it's a complicated question. And you know, we could go in a lot of different directions here. Let me say a couple of things. There are, if you look at the sort of the root causes of the crisis, a lot of it certainly lies in the banking system. There's no question about it. And it lies there on a couple of fronts. It lies there from organizations being way too highly leveraged, not having enough capital. It lies in very loose underwriting standards. Deborah mentioned my first job out of business school was, I was a credit analyst. So, we did a lot of, I did a lot of analytics around this. The lending standards, particularly in the mortgage area, were so loose it was ridiculous. And I would say there was very poor regulation. And interesting, not that the rules didn't exist, there was poor execution on the regulation standpoint. So, you end up, it's a fairly complicated set of issues. In terms of the banks today, they are really between a rock and a hard place. The cost of funding is very, very low, and so they're being encouraged to lend more aggressively. But two things are happening. At the same time the cost of funding is very low, they're also being told, build your capital. So, they're not actually being encouraged to lend as much as the rhetoric would have it. And then secondly, a lot of small businesses, and especially in the mid to larger size, aren't borrowing. There's a huge deleveraging going on. The economy was extraordinarily leveraged through the 90s, late 80s to 90s, early 2000s. And there is a systematic deleveraging going on. So in a sense, the demand for loans isn't that great. I know a few organizations who focus on sort of mid-sized companies, and they're actually trying to promote more. And all their clients are saying, we've got a record level of cash on the balance sheet. We don't need to do that. We don't need to borrow. And so, this is one of the policy tools that historically has worked before, but is not really helping right now.